The knock came at midnight. Bruce Lee opened the door of his Los Angeles home to find one of Hollywood's biggest stars standing in the darkness. Sunglasses, baseball cap, collar turned up. Trying not to be recognized, he'd driven across town in secret, parked 3 blocks away, walked in shadows, all to learn from a man most of America had never heard of. What happened in those midnight training sessions would change Hollywood forever. But first, they had to keep it secret. Los Angeles, California. Bruce Lee was struggling. The Green Hornet canceled, back to teaching martial arts, supporting Linda and baby Brandon. Hollywood had decided he was too Chinese for leading roles. His small Chinatown school barely covered rent. Then the phone rang. "Is this Bruce Lee? I'm Steve McQueen. I saw you on the Green Hornet. That's real fighting. I want to learn." Bruce was silent. "Steve McQueen, one of Hollywood's biggest stars. My training isn't a karate class. It's intense. I don't want a karate class. I want the real thing, to understand myself better." This wasn't celebrity hobby seeking. This was deeper. "When can you start? Tonight? Tonight? It's 9 p.m. I need discretion. If the press finds out, it becomes a circus. Can we keep this private?" Bruce understood. Steve McQueen learning from an unemployed Chinese actor? The press would mock it. "Midnight. My home. Come alone. Tell no one. Deal." That night, Steve arrived at Bruce's house, parked 3 blocks away, walked in darkness, knocked softly. Bruce opened the door. 2 men from different worlds, Hollywood royalty and Hollywood's reject. "Come in." Linda made tea. They talked. Not about fame, about philosophy, movement, what martial arts really meant. "Why do you want to learn?" Bruce asked. "I'm tired of pretending," Steve said. "On screen I'm tough, but that's a character. I want real strength, real control that comes from inside. Then we start from zero. Strip away everything you think you know. Ready? That's exactly what I need." Bruce's garage, 3 hours. Basic Wing Chun principles, not flashy moves, fundamental body mechanics, power from the core, efficient movement. Steve was terrible, awkward, stiff. Bruce was patient, correcting, teaching. 3 a.m. Steve drenched in sweat, exhausted, eyes bright. "When's the next session?" 2 days. Same time, secret. "I'll be here. Twice a week. Always midnight. Always disguised." For months, the training intensified. Not just technique but philosophy. Understanding yourself through movement. They became real friends. Genuine respect. Steve invited Bruce to sets, introduced him to directors, told everyone, "Bruce Lee is the real deal." But they kept training private. If it became public, it would change, become performance. It needed to stay sacred. Steve McQueen was just the beginning. Word spread quietly through Hollywood's elite. And soon, Bruce Lee had a secret network of students that would shock the world when it was finally revealed. The word spreads. Steve McQueen told James Coburn at a private party, "Bruce Lee, the only real martial arts teacher, but keep it quiet. He values privacy." James called Bruce. Another midnight session. Another Hollywood star sneaking through darkness. James was different, more intellectual, more interested in philosophy than combat. Bruce adapted, focused on Taoist principles. Water flowing, being formless. "You're not teaching me to fight," James said. "You're teaching me to think differently. Fighting is the least important part. Understanding yourself, that's the real lesson." Then Roman Polanski. The director wanted confidence, understanding discipline. Bruce taught him awareness, reading body language, psychological skills, not just physical. Each student got personalized training. Bruce adapted, modified, evolved based on who was learning. Then came the most meaningful student, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. 7 feet 2 inches, UCLA's dominant center, NBA destined, but deeply interested in Eastern philosophy, Islam, meditation, self-understanding. When Kareem ducked through the doorway, Bruce smiled. "You'll have to forget your height. On the ground we're the same size." Kareem laughed. "I've never trained with anyone not intimidated by how big I am." "I'm not intimidated. I'm intrigued. Let's see how a 7-foot man moves like water." Their relationship became deeper than teacher-student. Brotherhood. Kareem came for dinner, played with baby Brandon. Family time. Bruce taught Kareem modified Jeet Kune for his unusual height, used his length as advantage, but more importantly, taught him to stay centered when the world was watching. "Everyone expects me to be perfect," Kareem said one night. "Perfect athlete, perfect student, perfect representative. It's exhausting. Stop trying to be perfect for them. Be authentic for yourself. Perfect is impossible. Real is achievable." That conversation changed Kareem's life. Years later, he'd say Bruce taught him more about being a man than anyone except his father. By 1969, Bruce had a secret network. Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Roman Polanski, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Others who never went public, all training secretly, all transformed. But traditional martial arts schools in Chinatown were watching, and angry. Bruce Lee thought teaching celebrities was his breakthrough. He had no idea it would trigger a war with the traditional martial arts community that would force him to make an impossible choice. Los Angeles, Chinatown. The letter arrived. Master Li, your teaching of celebrities brings shame to traditional Chinese martial arts. You are selling sacred knowledge for money and fame. This cannot continue. Minor, the Traditional Martial Arts Council of Los Angeles. Bruce crumpled it, threw it away. The next day, students from traditional schools appeared near his institute. Watching, monitoring. James Lee pulled him aside. The traditional community thinks you're betraying Chinese culture. They think you're becoming Hollywood's exotic pet. I'm not anyone's pet, Bruce said sharply. Steve trains harder than most traditional students. Kareem has more dedication than any of them. They're not jealous of my teaching, they're jealous of my success. They're stuck in thousand-year-old systems that refuse to evolve. But the pressure increased. Phone calls, anonymous threats, students from traditional schools challenging Bruce's students on the street. It was becoming dangerous. Then one night, Steve McQueen arrived for training looking troubled. We need to talk. They sat in Bruce's living room. Linda brought tea. My agent found out I've been training with you, Steve said. Someone told the press. There's going to be an article in the Hollywood Reporter. Steve McQueen's secret kung fu teacher. Bruce felt his stomach tighten. When? Next week. My publicist is trying to kill it, but the reporter won't back down. Bruce, I'm sorry, I tried to keep it quiet. It's not your fault. The problem is, my agent thinks this is bad for my image. Taking lessons from an unknown Chinese instructor. He thinks it makes me look weak, like I need help. He's pressuring me to stop training. The room was silent. What do you want to do? Bruce asked quietly. Steve looked at him. I want to tell my agent to go to hell. I want to keep training. But Bruce, I have to think about my career, my family. If this becomes a big story, if the press makes it into some kind of joke, I understand. Do you? Yes. Bruce's voice was steady. You have obligations, responsibilities. You can't risk your career because some newspaper wants to make our training into gossip. It's okay, Steve. Really. Steve stood, paced. This isn't fair. You're the best teacher I've ever had. You've changed how I think about everything. And I have to stop because Hollywood might mock me for learning from you? Hollywood's problem isn't with you learning, it's with who you're learning from. If I were a Japanese sensei with a dojo in Beverly Hills, this wouldn't be an issue. But I'm a Chinese guy teaching in Chinatown who was on a failed TV show. That's the real problem. So what do? Bruce thought for a moment. We go public on our terms. Before the article, you give an interview. You talk about training with me, but you frame it as choosing the best teacher available, not some secret shame. You make it about excellence, not ethnicity. Steve's face lit up. Yes, that's exactly right. I'll call my publicist tonight. The interview happened 3 days before the Hollywood Reporter article. Steve McQueen talked openly about training with Bruce Lee, praised his methods, his philosophy, his genuine martial arts knowledge compared to Hollywood's fake choreography. The article quoted Steve. Bruce Lee is the real deal. Everything you see in movies is nonsense compared to what he knows. I'm privileged to learn from him. When the Hollywood Reporter piece came out, it wasn't a scandal. It was validation. Steve McQueen's brilliant choice, training with martial arts master Bruce Lee. The narrative had flipped. Suddenly, other celebrities wanted to know about this Bruce Lee character. The phone started ringing. Not for stereotypical Chinese villain roles, but for actual opportunities. The publicity should have been Bruce Lee's breakthrough. But then one of his most trusted students did something that would betray everything Bruce had taught him. Los Angeles. Hunza's name. His name was Dan Inosanto. Filipino-American martial artist who'd been training with Bruce since 1964. One of Bruce's first students. Most dedicated, most loyal. Bruce trusted him completely. Considered him a brother. Dan helped teach classes. Demonstrated techniques. Represented Bruce's methods when Bruce couldn't be there. He was family. Then one evening, Bruce got a call from James Coburn. Bruce, I don't know how to tell you this, but I saw something at Ed Parker's tournament that you need to know about. Ed Parker's International Karate Championships. The biggest martial arts event in America. Bruce hadn't attended. He didn't believe in tournaments. Thought they encouraged bad habits. Sport versus real combat. What happened? Dan was there. Demonstrating. He was showing your techniques, your philosophy, your training methods. But Bruce, he was presenting them as his own. Not mentioning you. Not giving credit. People were asking who his teacher was, and he was being vague. Some people think he developed Jeet Kune himself. Bruce felt like he'd been punched. You're sure? I'm sorry, Bruce. I watched the whole demonstration. It was your material. Your exact words about being like water. Your techniques. But he never said your name. Bruce hung up, sat in silence. Linda found him staring at nothing. What's wrong? Dan, he's been teaching my methods as his own. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. No. Bruce's voice was cold. James wouldn't make this up. Dan betrayed me. The next day, Bruce called Dan, asked him to come over. When Dan arrived, Bruce's face was stone. Ed Parker's tournament.
Tell me what you demonstrated. Dan's face showed he knew exactly why Bruce was asking. Bruce, I can explain. Just tell me what you demonstrated. Some Jeet Kune concepts, basic philosophy, a few techniques. And did you mention where you learned them? Silence. Did you tell people I taught you everything you were showing? Bruce, it's complicated. Some people don't respect Asian teachers. They think we're mystical foreigners with ancient secrets. But they listen to me because I look like them. I thought if I could get the techniques accepted first, then later credit you. That's bullshit. Bruce's voice was quiet but devastating. You thought you could build your reputation on my work. You thought you could take what I taught you and claim it as your own because you're more acceptable to white audiences than I am. That's not fair. Fair? Bruce stood. I taught you everything, trusted you, treated you like a brother, and you repaid me by stealing my life's work and presenting it as yours. Get out. Bruce, please, get out. Dan left. The door closed. Bruce stood in his training room surrounded by equipment, feeling more alone than he'd felt since arriving in America. Linda came in. What are you going to do? I don't know. If I make this public, it becomes drama, gossip. But if I stay silent, Dan gets to keep building his reputation on my work. Maybe everyone will think he developed these concepts. Maybe in 20 years, people will think Dan Inosanto created Jeet Kune. You could confront him publicly at the next tournament and look like a jealous teacher attacking a student. That helps no one. Bruce sat down. This is why traditional schools are so secretive, why they don't teach outsiders. The moment you share real knowledge, someone tries to steal it, profit from it, claim it as their own. He looked at his hands, scarred from years of training. Maybe the traditional masters were right. Maybe I shouldn't have taught anyone. Maybe I should have kept everything secret. Linda knelt beside him. Don't say that. Steve McQueen changed because of you. Kareem found himself because of you. James Coburn discovered philosophy because of you. One betrayal doesn't erase all of that, doesn't it? What if this is what teaching leads to? Trust, then betrayal, then you find students worth trusting, and you move on. But the betrayal haunted Bruce. For weeks he questioned everything. His teaching methods, his openness, his willingness to share. Then something happened that changed his perspective. Bruce Lee was ready to give up teaching forever. Then one of his students did something that would restore his faith and prove why he'd been right all along. Los Angeles, December 1970. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar showed up at Bruce's house unannounced, not for training, for something else. I heard what Dan did. Bruce was surprised. How? Word spreads. The martial arts community talks. I heard he demonstrated your techniques without credit. Kareem paused. I also heard you're thinking about stopping teaching. Who told you that? Linda. She called me. She's worried about you. Bruce closed his eyes. Of course Linda had reached out. She knew Kareem and Bruce had a deep bond. I'm not stopping, Bruce said. Just reevaluating. Good, because I need to tell you something. Kareem sat down. Last month I was in New York for a game. After, some reporters asked about my off-season training. I told them about you, about Jeet Kune, about everything you've taught me. You didn't have to do that? Yes, I did. Because the next day a reporter from Sports Illustrated called. Wants to do a feature article. Not about basketball. About you. About the man teaching Hollywood's elite. He wants to interview me, Steve, James, and you. Put you on the national stage. Bruce was quiet. Bruce, what Dan did was wrong. But he's one person. You've changed dozens of lives. Transformed how we think about strength, discipline, philosophy. You can't let one betrayal stop you from that mission. What if more people steal my work? Then we make sure everyone knows where it came from. That's why I'm doing this interview. That's why Steve is doing it. That's why James is doing it. We're going public not to make you famous, though that's a nice side effect, but to protect your legacy. To make sure nobody can ever claim your work as their own again. Bruce felt something shift in his chest. You'd do that? Risk your reputation being associated with an unknown martial arts teacher? Unknown. Kareem smiled. Bruce, you're only unknown because you haven't had the platform yet. That changes now. If Sports Illustrated wants to tell your story, we're going to make sure they tell it right. February 1971. Sports Illustrated published the article. The cover showed Bruce Lee mid-kick. The headline, The Man Teaching Hollywood to Fight, Bruce Lee's Revolution. Inside, 4 pages. Interviews with Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. All praising Bruce, all crediting him explicitly, all explaining how his teaching transformed them. Steve, Bruce Lee is the most knowledgeable martial artist I've ever met. Everything I know about real fighting I learned from him. He's teaching philosophy, how to think, how to be. Kareem, Bruce Lee changed my life, made me understand discipline in ways basketball never could. He's family to me. The article went national. Suddenly everyone knew who Bruce Lee was, not as Kato from the Green Hornet, as himself, as a teacher, as a philosopher, as someone who'd quietly built a network of Hollywood's elite without anyone noticing. The phone started ringing, not just celebrities, film producers, directors, Raymond Chow from Hong Kong calling about a movie deal. Opportunities Bruce had been chasing for years, suddenly chasing him. But the most meaningful moment came 3 weeks after the article published. Dan Inosanto showed up at Bruce's door, eyes red, hadn't slept. I read the article, saw how Steve and Kareem credited you, saw how they protected your legacy. His voice broke. I was wrong, so wrong. I betrayed you because I was scared nobody would respect me if they knew I was just a student. But I wasn't just a student, I was your brother. And I threw that away for ego. Bruce was quiet. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Dan continued. I don't deserve it. I just needed you to know I'm sorry, and that I'm spending the rest of my life making it right. Every time I teach, I start by saying my teacher Bruce Lee taught me this. Every technique. I will never let anyone forget where it came from again. Bruce looked at this man who'd betrayed him, saw genuine remorse, genuine change. Come inside, Bruce. I said come inside, we need to talk. They talked for 4 hours. About ego, about fear, about how easy it is to betray the people you love when you're scared, about redemption, about earning back trust. At the end, Bruce said, you're still my student, but you're on probation. You teach, you credit me, every time. No exceptions. Can you do that? For the rest of my life. Then we start again, tomorrow. Midnight training, like the old days. Dan's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just prove I'm right to trust you again. Dan did. For the rest of Bruce's life, he credited him explicitly. And after Bruce died, Dan Inosanto became one of the most important preservers of Bruce Lee's legacy, always making sure the world knew where Jeet Kune Do came from. Present day, the Jeet Kune Do school in Los Angeles still operates, run by Dan Inosanto, now in his late 80s. On the wall, photos. Bruce Lee teaching Steve McQueen in a garage. Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar laughing together. Bruce Lee demonstrating technique to James Coburn. Below the photos, a quote, a teacher is never a giver of truth. He is a guide, a pointer to the truth that each student must find for himself. Bruce Lee. Was it for money? Dan smiles. Money. Bruce charged Steve McQueen $250 an hour. Steve was making $200,000 per movie. The money meant nothing. Bruce taught them because they genuinely wanted to learn, because they were willing to train at midnight, to keep it secret, to put in the work. But why keep it secret? Because if it became public too soon, it would become Hollywood, performance, fake. By keeping it private, Bruce could teach real martial arts, real philosophy, transform people without the pressure of fame. That's what made those relationships special. What happened after Bruce died? His students kept his legacy alive. Steve McQueen talked about Bruce until Steve died in 1980. Kareem still teaches Jeet Kune Do concepts to young athletes. I've spent 50 years making sure everyone knows where these techniques came from. Dan touches the photo of him and Bruce. I almost destroyed that legacy once. I won't let it happen again.
Another student raises her hand. Could I train like Steve McQueen did? The midnight sessions? Dan laughs. The midnight sessions ended with Bruce, but the philosophy doesn't. Bruce taught us that real learning happens when nobody's watching, when there's no audience, no applause, just you and the truth. That's available to everyone, anytime. White text on black. Bruce Lee's private students included Steve McQueen, James Coburn, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Roman Polanski, and others who never went public. The midnight training sessions lasted from 1967-1971, stopping only when Bruce moved to Hong Kong. Dan Inosanto reconciled with Bruce and spent the rest of Bruce's life, and the 50 years since, preserving and teaching Jeet Kune Do with full credit to Bruce Lee. Sports Illustrated's 1971 article, The Man Teaching Hollywood to Fight, made Bruce Lee a household name in America, leading directly to his Hong Kong film career. Steve McQueen remained Bruce's friend until Steve's death in 1980. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar still speaks about Bruce's influence, calling him family. Today, thousands of students worldwide practice Jeet Kune Do, all tracing their lineage back to those secret midnight sessions in a small garage in Los Angeles. Final image, Bruce Lee teaching in his garage, surrounded by empty space. Simple, pure, just teacher and student. No cameras, no audience, just truth. Voiceover, Bruce Lee's actual voice. A good teacher protects his pupils from his own influence. He inspires self-trust. He guides their eyes from himself to the spirit that quickens him.